right, guys, so we got the Gen 5 up and pulled the forks. We are gonna rebuild the forks today. Oh man, I need brake pads. Those things are fudged. When the fork oil leaks, it's gonna tear these up. I'm also gonna swap these lines. We're gonna change these out. This looks like it's a delete for the evap. Yeah, for the emissions, this looks like it's an evap delete. This is usually where the evap container sits right here. And if you guys don't know, here, let me see if I got a good view. The evap container sits like up in here. It's called also like a charcoal box. Charcoal canister, thank you. Yeah, there's a few different names for it. Anyway, yep, we're probably gonna swap these lines out. I got a set of core moto lines we'll probably swap out. I'm gonna clean these. These are pretty filthy. Yeah, these are horrible looking. There's so much crap built up on it. Look at that. Ooh. So we'll clean that. We'll redo these brake lines, and obviously the primary thing that we're gonna do right now is clean and fix these leaking forks. So look, this thing was barely sitting here and we already have oil residue. This fork's wet. Look how disgusting this is. So what we're also gonna do is polish up this inner tube here. A lot of times with all the dirt, whenever it gets built up like this and you continuously ride on it, you basically, what you start to do is you actually pit the inner tube here. It'll start to pit it, so, which isn't good when that seal's going up and down and that seal's constantly going over it. When it's pitted, it creates more issues. You're gonna create leaking forks all over again. And I mean, look at this. It's got fresh fluid. This thing's been leaking like a sieve for...
And I've wiped it out a couple of times.
Yeah, man, we've cleaned this. Yeah, Lewis has cleaned it. I wiped it once. Lewis has been wiping it. At least all the residual oil that keeps building up. So needless to say, we're gonna clean off this little work area too. We're gonna get this cleaned up a little bit so we can work on these things. But we're gonna get them pulled. We're gonna drain the oil. We're gonna run a little bit stiffer of an oil. Ideally, I wanna cut these forks a little bit, but we're gonna see once we get in there what we have to do to actually get them lowered a little bit. So what we're actually gonna do is do like an internal cut. So the outer tube is gonna sit just a little bit lower on this one. So we are gonna lower the bike slightly. So I wanna make it look clean and make it look sleek. So I know a lot of you guys out there, your heads are exploding right now and you're probably pissed at me, but guess what? I don't care. We're gonna do it anyway. I wanna make sure you can really see how crappy this is. Yeah, it's bad. It's dirty. Yeah, it's pretty filthy. All right, guys, so a quick update here on the Gen 5 ZX10 that we purchased not too long ago. So we decided to rebuild the forks and look how beautiful they came out. They look practically brand new. They cleaned up really well. We polished the lower here. All these lower on the inner tube, we polished all that out. Lewis did a hell of a job here. And we'll just do a quick little walk around. If you could tell, the differences are pretty extreme. Now there is just a little bit of dirt here and there still on it. I'm not really too concerned about that. It's gonna get dirty anyway as I start riding it around. So the main thing is we wanted the inner tubes here to be nice and smooth and clean, and they did just that. They came out beautifully. So anyway, we're gonna throw these on now, and we're gonna lower the bike a little bit when we do it. We already got the rear a little bit lowered, as you can tell, and we're gonna do a chain and sprocket kit, and then we're gonna do some brakes after that. We'll probably replace the lines and the pads because they look non-existent. And then what we're gonna do, so this bike actually had a valve adjustment done prior to coming into the shop. We're just gonna double check it since we're here anyways. We're this close. The plugs look pretty bad, so they did not change the spark plugs, which kind of, you know, if we're doing a valve adjustment, we're changing the plugs while we're in there. The people that did do this one, they opted not to. I'm not sure why, but we're gonna go and pick up the plugs here soon. So we're gonna swap all the plugs out. We're gonna take this out. I'm gonna redo all the gaskets. Again, just in case. I'm meticulous. I'm very anal about stuff like that. So we're gonna make sure that everything on here is nice and fresh before we take it out. So Lewis is being a little bit of a smart ass right now. He said, how low do you want to go? So anyway, what we're probably going to eventually do is, and we'll do it on a different set of forks that I get because the caps and everything are pretty pricey. So I figured we'll just swap the forks out here eventually. We're actually going to cut them internally so we can lower it internally. And that way it'll give us a nice flush look whenever we do all that. But for right now, we mainly want to get this just streetable and to where we can go and just do some testing for right now. Eventually this bike is going to get a once over, all in all. We mainly wanted to do just all the maintenance items for right now. Again, so that we can at least get out there and just enjoy it and have some fun on it and get some times and things like that. Just get some experience on it. The next thing that we're gonna do are like I said, the brake lines and the brake pads. And then we actually have the Pro Cut Gen 4 transmission with a Robinson first gear, and it's all been micro polished and all that jazz. That is going to go in next. So it should be a pretty cool bike, all in all. We're gonna start slowly replacing some of these older internal parts and putting all brand new parts in. So we're very excited about it. Stay with us on this build. I have a feeling it's gonna come out really, really cool. And anyways, guys, stay with this build. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun build. We're really excited, and we wanna show you a lot of this stuff so that way you can kind of see what we do as a shop to put into a street bike that's still kind of overkill for a street bike, but hey, we're gonna enjoy it. All right, guys, so what we're about to do next is we got the front wheel pulled, and we're gonna swap it out for a Dunlop Q5 front. And then for the rear, we have actually a Q4 rear that we're gonna throw on that we have. We're gonna order a Q5 later on. We're gonna burn up that Q4. It's one we had in the shop, so still has some decent mileage left on it. I may be able to get about 700-800 miles, maybe even maybe a little over 1,000 with the treading left. So I'm gonna enjoy that tire, just burn it out, throw it off, and then we'll swap it out. The other thing we're gonna do is this bike had a 525 chain and sprocket kit, the super light rear and a JT front. We're gonna take this kit off and we're gonna convert this over to a 520. I have a 520 EK3D chain and a driven sprocket rear and a super light front. So we're gonna swap all of this out while we're replacing the rear tire here. And I'm actually gonna go down to a 520 kit. When we're finished doing all of the maintenance items on the bike, we're gonna get it back on the dyno and do a touch-up tune on it. So whenever we do all of that, what we'll do is we'll overlay the numbers on when I recently baselined it right before taking it into the shop. I'm gonna tune it, and then what we'll do is we'll overlay the differences between what it is now, because the tune was in it, it was close, it was running a little rich, like 12.7, 12.8 AFRs. We're gonna just retune it, we're gonna touch it up, and we'll overlay it basically with how it originally came in and how it's gonna sit right now before we really get into the motor and do extra work. So that way you can kind of see already the progress just on the little things that we're gonna do or that we've done. Again, sitting on the dyno, and we'll get an overlay on the power differences. So it'll be interesting. I'm really curious. I don't know what to expect. It should make more theoretically because again, we're modifying it to make more power. So we'll see. Really hopeful. That's what we should see, but you never know. I've been wrong before, but we'll see what happens. We are in the middle of a valve adjustment as well right now. I don't want to move this around too much, but you can kind of see up in there. We are in the middle of a valve adjustment. Like I said earlier in the video, the valves have been adjusted by a different shop. So when we checked the valves, we did notice that there was like 2 on the exhaust side that were just a little too tight. They were just out of spec. And I know as we heat cycle this bike and as we run it, they're gonna get a little tighter. So we're gonna loosen up. It was, I wanna say it was all the way on cylinder 4, and then we had like cylinder 2 or 3. I don't remember which ones now. We got the paperwork over there, but we had 2 of them that were tight, and then this one was out of spec. The furthest one, we say it's number 8, which is cylinder 4 on the intake side. It was definitely out of spec. It was way too tight. So we're going to redo cylinder 4 here on the intake side and make sure that this one's in spec. So once we do all of that, once we get those into time and everything, and once we get the clearances corrected, then we'll patch the motor up and we'll reseal it. He did have a manual cam chain tensioner on this bike, but as you can see, this is not the best quality. We actually had some rust buildup on it, and this is all rounded out here for your adjuster nut or your adjuster bolt. So we went to go make an adjustment because we couldn't even get this really back in there. It didn't fit too well. And as we were doing it, we were like, wait, what the heck? There's rust all on it and the bolt seized up. We're like, what is going on? So we ordered another one of these, a manual cam chain tensioner. We ordered another one of those, so we're gonna get that on, that should be here in the next couple of days, so that way we can actually finish the valve adjustment and do it properly and make sure we don't screw anything up. So, and then we also are gonna swap out the OEM steering dampener. This is a big thing that, it's not the best, you know, it's definitely not the best steering dampener, so we're gonna swap this out. We have another one that we're gonna try. I mean, look how loose. I mean, these are electronic. They're supposed to get stiffer with speed. However, again, they're just not the best. Between these and the Suzuki's, I'm not a big fan, so we usually swap those out. But overall, the bike is still a mess. We have some brake lines here, these black and green lines. We're gonna swap some of these out. This is actually for my ZX10r. I have one front and another rear, but the rear is for the extended arm. So once we get the new arm in, I'll actually swap out that rear, and then I need to order another front so we can do both the front lines here. But for right now, the pads are in. We're gonna install the pads as well. Those brake pads are shot. If you look in there, we got basically no pad left. The typical rule of thumb is between 1 to 3 millimeter, they need to be replaced. And as of right now, you can see these are basically, eyeballing them, we're probably around 2 to 3 mil, if I had to take a wild guess. So we're basically at service limit. So we got some double standard pads that metallics that we're gonna throw in there. And yeah, so that's the update so far. We're also going to take off this wheel stripes, these wheel stripes. They're all faded, they're all white now. The front one's green, the rear one's white. They just don't match. So we're gonna take these off, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a heat gun, and we're gonna heat these up to get it nice and loose, and then they should just peel right off. So that's the goal. But yeah, that's what we're about to do, and we're about to execute it. So stick with us. We'll show you the transformation here soon.